We're back at the table with this week's line panelists. Our focus this hour is environmental issues here in New Mexico, and water is a big one. The drought in California is getting a lot of media attention right now, but there are concerns about drought and water resources right here in New Mexico. Carolyn, let me start with you. Do you think the news out of California may change the conversation here in New Mexico? Or do we have enough issues here in New Mexico that we can keep it a New Mexican conversation, not even think about California? I know what the answer is, but California really has lit something off like a flare across the country, a warning.
We've been doing this for 20 years, right? California's just beginning. That's like, it blows my mind.
Right.
And also the most interesting thing I came up with is that most of the bottled water companies, right? Dasani,
right.
Arrowhead are coming out of California. So we're feeding. California is the bottled capital of the world, and yet they have no water.
That's
right.
That's right.
And so. Now the thing is we all have straws in the Colorado River, right? And what's going to happen to our straw? So I think we should do a campaign on "You Can Do It Too," California. I'd be happy to be part of that. And it's like a wake-up call, but it's just amazing that it's this late.
Yeah, it's a California thing, isn't it? It's interesting. Mackenzie, of course, with your studies in landscape, water is like the #1 thing going on right now. I'm sure you guys talk about it endlessly. For New Mexico, though, one of the issues seems to be getting awareness of how the problem either affects you personally, affects you as part of the whole. That messaging about getting water issues out there, where do you see this standing right now in New Mexico?
Well, I think it's pretty interesting because it has a lot to do with landscape literacy and how we're educating people.
Right.
Because as landscape architects, we look at everything from large-scale regional, water development or ecological systems, all the way to your backyard or your front lawn, And I think educating people on the ability to understand the changes that are happening in a landscape, because people may notice, my tree's dying, or it looks a little funky off the side of the highway, but not necessarily connect that to climate change or to the drought in general. So I think as landscape architects, we can work to educate people on literacy, understanding the changes they see, or looking at infrastructure and understanding, that's bringing electricity from San Juan, and putting those dots together more on a personal level so people see it, because it's around us every day.
Sure,
so
absolutely.
I think that's a way that we can really work with people to help people get educated.
Sure. Laura Paskus, I'm interested in your thought relating to your work around Chaco Canyon and some of the oil and gas rigging that's going up right around the perimeter of the park. And its effect on water, not necessarily in Chaco area, but you know what I mean, fracking, all the things we're talking about with water here. What's the conversation like here in New Mexico as we have Earth Day 2015 about things like water and fracking and the need to get more energy out of the ground versus keeping quality water? What's going on with that?
Yeah, in New Mexico, the big issue is always water quantity. We're always like, where are we going to get enough water for the farmers and the cities and endangered species and maintain things like the bosque? It seems like the conversation is less often about quality, but it's a huge issue. And thinking about the wastewater from the oil and gas industry or from dairies or from mining, I think it's a time when we really need to be thinking we have a limited amount of water, that as the climate warms, we're going to have even less and less. So what we do have, we should probably be thinking in new ways about protecting that water.
Who leads that argument? Is it agriculture? Is it business? Is it the consumer? Is someone got a nose out front and leading the way on this in your view?
I am constantly surprised in New Mexico at how many amazing and thoughtful people are right out in front on these issues, whether it's federal water managers or certain people at the state who are trying to think about these issues, local governments, water managers. But I think it really is, we're working within the confines of certain federal laws, certain state regulations, the compacts that determine how and where we can use water and store it. That the issues are so big that they're just crushing. I was at the Bureau of the Bureau of Reclamation last week had a meeting about their 2015 operating plan for the Rio Grande, and it was a grim meeting.
Wow, really? No kidding. Can you touch on a couple of highlights that we should know about?
That we don't have the snow melt. We don't have the snowpack. We don't have the snow melt. The snow melt we do have is coming early.
Wow.
The demands are always the same, and they're rising all the time. And water managers, I really believe, are doing the best that they can to serve serve all these different users, including endangered species.
Sure.
But, until we start having some really serious conversations among our families, our communities, putting pressure on our federal delegation and our state leaders to say the climate has changed, we have less water, we're going to continue to have less water, we need to be thinking about doing things in new ways.
Well said. Laura Sanchez-Rivey, we've had a recent agreement with the dairy industry, sort of an agreement, I should qualify that, regarding how they line pits where wastewater from the industry to keep, I guess, ostensibly water from going into the groundwater. There's been some resistance. What does that stand? Because we're talking about a big industry here in our state, a big important industry, but we need to get moving on that one too. Where does that stand?
Right, a huge industry, and this is always sort of an issue that comes up every year. It has, between environmentalists and the dairy industry, as well as the Environment Department. What has happened recently is there's an agreement, a stipulated settlement that actually includes this time the dairies. There's about 11 dairies down in the southern part of the state around Anthony, along with several environmental organizations, Sierra Club, others that are local, as well as the Environment Department. They've come together and basically agreed on a set of rules, or a set of principles that will guide this rule. And at this point, it's going to be proposed, I believe, next month to the Water Quality Control Commission for approval. I think what's unprecedented about this is that the groups have actually come together and have agreed to something before they get to the Water Quality Control Commission. In the past, there usually is a lot of fighting back and forth. All the parties are very far apart. And in this case, they've actually been able to hammer out an agreement about what to do to line those pits better, as well as having some monitoring wells along the way, both downstream and upstream, in order to determine what the impact on changes are. All of this discussion and the fact that they were able to come together came out of litigation that had already been in place. There had been ongoing litigation on groundwater contamination happening down in Anthony, and these dairies, as well as the environmental groups, had already been a party to this. So Environment Department's leadership, I think, was important in coming in and bringing the parties together and crafting something that can actually work. The industries end up being self-regulating, but they also are, there's a check upon them with those monitoring wells. And so the environmentalists, I think, are happier with this outcome than if they'd gone through a long, protracted hearing and then left it up to a commission that's appointed by the governor to determine what the outcome should be. So I think they're happier with this outcome.
That's interesting. And speaking of dairy, we can throw in the copper industry in here as well, Carolyn. In this idea of protecting groundwater, through their actions, like Laura said, why does everything have to be a suit to move forward? I know the answer to that, but please.
Yeah, I'm going to. I think that happens, when you're dealing with government and lawyers. But, I want to speak for the business, okay, here, because there's innovation that needs to happen, basically. We're going, how do we, pull from the same resources? But there's innovation that's happening, too. There's a company that is in Roswell right now that is taking, piping the poop, frankly, and transforming that, processing that, so that it becomes a biogas that ultimately becomes gas for a mass transit. I mean, that's the kind of innovation we need to see. And business is doing that. And back to water, there's another company here in New Mexico called Growstone. And what they do is they take all the glass out of landfills and they transform that glass into a growing medium using absolutely no water, zero water, and then they sell it on the open market. So from a business standpoint, we have so many opportunities to really we have these problems and yet great opportunities to transform the way we do business on this planet.
Sure. Last 2 minutes on this segment, I want to pivot to something, and starting with you, Mackenzie, the Gila River. Certainly we've covered that here at this table with Laura Paskus's help many, many times. We've got, again, some movement happening. There's some agreement between the feds, and we've mentioned our local environment departments here. Where do we stand now with the Gila? Because it seems like there's a lot of choices out there, a lot of money on the table that we could be getting, but almost a preferred set of incentives. If we take the federal money, we'll have to do all these other things, and nobody knows what the result's going to be on the environment. What's your thought on that?
Right. Well, I think it's interesting that we're focusing more on relying on surface diversions.
Right.
when the snowpack and surface rainfall is decreasing due to climate change, and we're facing the prospect of large-scale, recent papers have said we're entering a period of unprecedented drought in the last, multiple thousands of years. So we're putting all this money, federal money, which is incentivizing surface diversion without even agreed purchasers, and we have to pay back Arizona for the water that's taken out.
Right.
So we're focusing on surface diversions. At the same time, we're drilling more and more wells. We're pulling more groundwater, which is probably going to become a larger and larger source of the water we use in New Mexico.
Right.
And simultaneously, we are threatening that very groundwater with increased oil and gas drilling, possible new uranium mining, copper runoff from the mines or pollution, the dairies, and so we're essentially poisoning the thing that we're going to be relying on more, and yet the federal government is incentivizing diverting the Gila.
Sure.
So I think it's an interesting situation.
Let me go to Laura Paskus again. Your reporting on this has been very interesting. Other Laura has family in Deming. The idea is to get some water piped over to the Deming area. How does one actually do that? How do you actually pipe water from a river over to a municipality, and what does it cost? What is the impact? It's a very interesting situation.
Those are very good questions, and it would be great if the state could answer those in their entirety. I think, right now there's a few different plans on the table that they're thinking about looking at, but they are all incomplete. I think that the push was the state had 10 years to decide if they were going to take that federal money, or in what context they were going to take that federal money. If New Mexico was going to say, yes, we want to build a New Mexico unit of the Central Arizona Project, and we're going to divert water from the Gila. And that was the push last year, and the state said, yes, we want to build that. We'll get that extra federal money. And so now we're sort of in this phase where the state is looking at, clearing up some of the legal language by the end of this year, and looking at some of the planning. They're going to need to put in like a 30% design. So they're looking for proposals for engineering firms to do this 30% design. But what we saw last year was that these, in the federal government itself, reviewing the state's contracts, said, you guys, these prices are totally, you're not accounting for all the costs. The costs, it would cost $500 million or whatever is what they're saying, but it could cost close to $1 billion when you look at all the costs. And I think it's really interesting to look at, what New Mexico thinks it can get legally versus what water there actually is and what water there will be in a warming climate are two different things. And we're not talking about that. We're not, the state is not rectifying that. And it's interesting to me that the state is now saying, asking the federal government, we would like to be a co-lead. We would like to be helping lead the scientific studies under the National Environmental Policy Act, which I think would be very interesting.
Are we anywhere near a decision on this, or is enough information, counter information, going to come in to make everybody say, okay, hey, no, we need to back up here a little bit and think about this?
Honestly, I think it could be, if ground were ever broken on a diversion, it would take 20 years. There's so much work that would need to be done. That makes sense. That makes sense, though. Interesting. Up next, we learn how local libraries here are supporting learning for people of all ages.